Steve Jobs might have been one of the greatest minds of our time, and despite his controversy and techniques, he was highly focused and creative and also problem-oriented. His simplicity and minimalism made him an outstanding CEO, and he created a brand and corporation that are uniquely different from others. He created Apple. So in this video, I want to go into detail why simple systems are often better, especially in the beginning, and how you can create them. So first of all, let's start. The short overview, we'll cover first a few simple steps and simplifications, and later on getting into more detail of the system, so you really know what this video will be about. First of all, to understand why simple systems are often better, we also need to understand why we should actually create simple systems and why we actually should start with simple systems and later develop into more explanatory and more unique systems, which can't be built on a wrong or not foundational good base. It's like a house. If you want to build a house, it needs to have a strong foundation, otherwise it will collapse or shrink or whatsoever. So, and also Steve Jobs was fabulous about it, right? He was super simple, and as you might know, and also like hearing this on iPad, Apple is uniquely designed. It has his minimalism concept, which also comes from Steve Jobs' way of living. So we can also understand and need to find a way how we can minimalize our life, which maybe doesn't really look perfect from my point of view, because I have this huge PC in my bag. So as we all know, Apple is quite elegant and simple build. So the quality or the products of Apple kind of have this minimalism style to it, and it's also super simple to explain. And also Steve Jobs was kind of like living his way of style and the minimalism, because otherwise I don't really think he could make it if he doesn't live it. And generally, I feel like it's easier to just live the life instead of faking it. So we're talking here about the art of minimalism, so why less is often more, and also how we can replicate that to systems. What he's outstanding is his simplification and simple language. So for example, Steve Jobs was really like embracing this life of minimalism and also implementing this into business, and also actually reducing his decision fatigue and improved his focus actually by just wearing the same thing every single day, his turtleneck and I think his blue jeans. And also what he also quite well known is about the focus is about saying no. It's not about like having a to-do list with like 1,000 things. It is actually doing less and more intentionally, and also being good at saying no. No to the things which doesn't lead us forward. One of the big problems I see in our modern society is that smart people often really stand in their own way, because they think like, oh my god, I have such a high IQ, life should be easier and everything would be better. Actually not. Like, life is not only one side of the coin, it have a lot of variations. Because if you want to enjoy life, there's a lot of different steps and intelligences we need to accomplish in a given time. Most IQ people, they often struggle with relationships, dating in general, or health. And for that, it's actually more important having a good emotional intelligence. But like only having an emotional intelligence maybe suffers in other various aspects. So we kind of need a variation of different intelligences. But I think an emotional intelligence is kind of like more successful in life, because life is not about like being in front of the computer the entire day. It is like going out, connecting with people, and interacting with other humans. So these high IQ people or smart people really standing in their own way. And they often also overcomplicate language and ideas, which is not really beneficial for themselves and others, because it is really important to understand the other person. And if you overcomplicate the language and ideas, no one else gets it. So it is more important to talk to a kid and explain to a kid how certain things is going to be. And honestly, in my perspective, true intelligence lies in simplifying complex concepts so a child can understand it, as in my opinion, Steve Jobs was perfect doing it with Apple. And one really crucial thing is the importance of rest for creative output. So in my point of view, is that productivity is actually, like the highest form of productivity is creative problem solving. Most people think like, oh my God, I need to be super productive with like Notion or like Obsidian and have the craziest task system and everything is connecting. Yeah, this kind of works on a higher level, but most people don't really understand the basics of productivity, which is actually well known on the brain, its creativity, and the ability to solve problems. And that's why people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or Jeff Bezos are paid so high in terms of the financial hierarchy, because they're really good problem solvers. And also Steve Jobs understood this, that creativity thrives in moments of rest. And that was the reason he took walking meetings and boosted his creativity and problem solving ability and talking with people, getting sunlight, which is really important, and also helps us with happiness, which actually makes us more productive. And another thing is we also really want to detach from ourselves from problems and allow our subconscious mind to generate solutions. Because the thing is, when we step outside of a problem or getting outside of the desk, our creative mechanism in the brain kind of starts rolling. It really starts to think randomly. That's why you're probably thinking like, oh, when I'm in a shower, I have good ideas, because our brain is like in this boring state and it's kind of like solving the problems by its own. But if we constantly distract our brain with like dopamine, sugar, or like video games, even though I like video games, or like being on the phone and scrolling the entire day with TikTok, our brain never really gets the rest and the ability to solve problems by its own based on its creative mechanism, which is from the book, The Psycho-Cybernetics. And the thing is, to be really the best version of ourselves, we really need to have an emotional well-being to get more creative so we can solve better problems and additionally or like resulting in optimal productivity. And honestly, everyone who's telling you need to work 8 or 12 hours is actually talking bullshit. Because the better we sleep, the better we have an active recovery, meaning exercise and movement, the better we train or also have some gratitude, honestly saying like, hey, I need some meditation, I need some conversation, and also leading to social connections, having like maybe a loving partner, a good family, good friends. That is really important. You don't need to see them every single day or every single minute of the day, but really it helps a lot with your happiness. And also consuming calories. We don't want to eat too many calories, so we gain fat and brain fog. And we also don't want to eat too little, which I had problems before with like my extreme diets, because our brain and our body needs a specific amount of calories. Otherwise, we get some problems. So another really important thing is simplicity leads to better and more sustainable results. The thing is, I was a guy who was always kind of like doing a bit too much, like having crazy Notion systems, having a better second brain, everything. And then sometimes I developed better systems, and then I was like, actually sometimes simple is better because it made things easier to follow. So it makes it more sustainable. And if we understand the basics, later on, we can build better systems on top of that. But without the basics, hard to execute and sustainable build it. So overcomplicated systems create often inefficiencies, especially in the beginning. As I just mentioned, my Notion system was quite complex, which is actually good because it is kind of like getting super crazy connected with everything, but also sometimes it actually makes us more ineffective. And that was what I was realizing was I had a super simple moving project and task system in Milanote, which is a whiteboard app. And I was just like having everything in one column, and every single day the task I did not finish were just moving on the next day. And then after a while I was building this Notion system, and I just realized, well, this task system is kind of like ineffective in some ways because I often lose sight of track because it was just too much at once. So when I kind of like got back into the simple system with create weekly calendar, like simply here from Monday to Sunday, and then I color them like, hey, this task was complete in green, and then I just moved the unfinished task just on Tuesday, for example, from Monday to Tuesday, and then deleted unnecessary things, Like sometimes we don't really need all of this stuff. And sometimes we think like, oh, this might be something important. But then later on, 2 days later, it's like, oh, it was actually not really important. And then also with the Eisenhower matrix, which I will not get into detail, but trying to like really prioritize the things what is really helpful for you. And the key lesson actually here, which I learned, is simple systems allow for better execution and consistency. And only once it is really ingrained, we can then transition it into a more sustainable system, and also kind of like need to keep the basic and the simplicity, but maybe build something on top of it that we don't forget the basic and simplicity, but also include the complexity of like maybe the capabilities of Notion. So yeah, as mentioned, you can get the Notion template down below in the comments. So let's get into a bit more extreme topic, the art of problem solving. So one of the things I'm really often teaching and explaining in my newsletters, and also in my cohorts, is that we should return to our inner child and then awaken our creativity. Because the problem as adults, we often lose this creativity due to trauma and rigid thinking. Means the more experiences and traumatic experiences or triggers we have, the harder it's sometimes to focus on specific things and be creative, because there's so much data stored in our brain the older we get. It's really hard to just focus on one thing because there's so much clutter in our brain. And also something what startups are really good at is to innovate and be more effective than big corporations due to their creative skill of problem solving. So, and that's also here, the quote, that's why some startups outperform large companies by being incredibly creative, as they need to compensate for limited financial resources or a lack of structure and hierarchy. The more we detach ourselves from our adult thinking patterns, which is really important, the more creative we become, leading to a higher innovation and problem-solving abilities. Because life is a series of problems, and the more creative thinkers we become, the faster we can solve the problems. And what we also want to do is we want to develop and improve our creative thinking patterns. And as I mentioned before, we need to detach ourselves or yourself from problems through exercise, meditation, talking to people, and also stepping away from the problem or the desk. Because sometimes if you just think there, it's like, oh, how do we solve the problem? It's sometimes better just take a shower, go for a walk, go training, and then most of the problems kind of getting solved by itself, because our brain is kind of like working subconsciously. And yeah, as Steve Jobs was saying, he was holding his meetings for brainstorming and making better decisions. I think I'm saying this word so many times wrong with decisions. Okay, so what is also really important is having singular focus on our goals. As mentioned before, singular focus is really important. And one key factor, which a lot of people might not know, happiness comes from singular focus. So the more mental clutter we have, the more problems we have trying to tangle at once, actually the more unhappy our brain gets. And there was from a video from healthy gamers, a psychologist on YouTube, and it's true, because the more flow we have, the more singular focus we have, and the more happy we become, because flow itself is the reward. And being in flow state where we have singular focus, the more happy we are. And yeah, so clarity on goals directs efforts efficiently. So for example, I create this 90-day challenge method, similar to OKRs or structures focusing on execution. And if you don't know what OKR are, is objective key results. So like big companies have specific 3 months periods, like quarters, and they move to specific goals every 3 months. And I built kind of like a similar system based on that, and also from my past company experience as a startup founder, where we made 300K in the first year of it being a startup. So if you want to be interested more about the story, link is also down below to the blog post. But yeah, the key factor is this 90-day challenge method honestly changed a lot how I make progress and achieve my goals. So there's actually 2 challenges I'm running, which is the 90-day challenge, link is down below, or the 7 days to more clarity, which is a simple short journey from chaos to clarity, which helped me extremely to start my new personal brand and business journey and differentiate myself from my past startup difficulties. So both links are linked down below. The one is for 7 days and the other one is 90 days. So feel free to join which one you want. And yeah, there's 2 things I would like to explain: the 90-day challenge method and the periodization. So first of all, the 90-day business, as you might find out if you would join the challenge, is there's a 90-day concept which is based on a 12-week goal strategy. Actually, this OKR, yeah, sometimes my English, and start of 12-week cycle. So for example, we have this 12-week period, we set one specific goal, and then we have this intense work phase, which is for 84 days, which is 12 weeks. And at the end of the cycle, we either achieve our goal or assess our goal. And then we have 6 days of reflection and vacation to just get some rest. Also have some caffeine break, which is really important, which I talk in a couple of other videos or my newsletter quite a lot, that we need a rest of coffee. And also, this cycle will be repeated for 4 times in a year. So 90 days, 90 days, 90 days, and 90 days. And it's also kind of like suitable to Christmas and everything. Yeah, so in total, we actually have 29 days in these 4 times cycles, which is actually just like the normal breaks as an employee. What's also really important is the periodization system, which like big athletes like Chris Bumstead, Usain Bolt are doing. So they always have like a specific period where they, let's say, have a caloric surplus, like a bulking season, to gain more muscle. It's like the off season, for example, and a caloric deficit, which with fat loss focus for peak season and the competition. So this is a periodic system, so we don't really get a burnout. We have the recovery, because otherwise, if we really injure ourselves, which I done multiple times with overtraining, we kind of get more break than we actually want to do. Coming to the last 2 steps I want to cover in this video. First of all, we want to become as obsessed as Steve Jobs without the burnout. Not burnout. I don't think that Steve Jobs got this burnout, but I think a lot of people get this burnout, sadly. So, first of all, what is really important is passion sustains perseverance. So, because most people give up due to a lack of deep desire. The more we are working towards our purpose and our deep desire, the less break we actually need, because we're getting into a flow and our work itself is the reward. For example, myself included, I work between 4 to 6 hours in a single day. Sometimes, sure, there's more time because I'm in flow. But I'm mostly quite sustainable with the 4 to 6 hours. And honestly, because I'm so happy with my work and I love my work so much, that I don't really want to not work. It is kind of like my routine and my meditation to write in the morning, creating these systems, creating these cohorts, YouTube content, that I just really enjoy these things. And if I don't do my work, I'm kind of like being bored. And yeah, I just really enjoy it. The thing for me is here, purpose provides a lot of energy and direction, which is also beneficial for the dating thing, which, yeah, you maybe can make it for yourself. And then also we gain a lot of mental clarity and reduce chaos, because we are heading towards one specific goal. So if you're still employed and don't start your own business, it is maybe a bit difficult in the beginning. That's the reason I'm also launching these courses, these free email courses like the challenges, that you can make it easier. But like once we have this one singular focus, this one specific goal we want to reach, and we can build this every 90 days, life becomes really enjoyable, in my opinion. We also have motivation, and also in difficult times, means when my dad, for example, passed away last year, which was, it was last year, December 2023, but then 2024 wasn't really good. I kind of still was motivated and wake up, even though it was such a painful year, but I was still motivated because I have such a deep purpose for my work. And kind of like these 4 hours, even though it was just 4 hours of work, because I couldn't really do more, based off the when the coffee was kind of like getting off, kind of like all these emotions was kind of like getting up again. But without this purpose, I think it would be so much more difficult to like really get over this year simply. So also another thing, as mentioned before, in the energy direction, is we gain a lot of confidence as singular focus sharpens decision making, and also decision makers in terms of dating, in terms of a relationship, and this really helps, I think, in my opinion, a lot of men as well, having a specific direction, like in a video game, in a specific quest we want to follow. And also, the more flow states, the more flow we also get, and the more we become happy, as mentioned before. Because if we're having a singular focus on a specific problem or purpose we want to achieve in life and passion, we gain more flow. It on this video, so control over challenge skill balance, which boosts fulfillment. And also autonomy and business ownership enable flexible work and life balance. The problem is, if we are employed, which people can do whatever they want, and if they really have a job they love in a company or whatever, I'm fine. But for me, I don't know. I really wasn't happy with my own company. That's the reason I left it and started my own thing now and do it everything completely alone so far. And also, there's so much autonomy we can have if we really have our own business, which we manage for ourselves, which takes a bit of time and accountability, but really helps a lot long term. So, and also sometimes it's better for your health and relationships to hold back immediate income for greater income in the future. So something that I'm often teaching in the cohorts is really like hold yourself back, and maybe don't really take the big deal or the bigger deal. Let's say it depends how big the deal is. Sometimes for your own health and relationships, because based on your strategy, you might make more money in a half a year without getting the burn in the beginning of new resulting projects. And for making it this far in this video, which is already quite a long time, is there's 3 simple, even 4 simple systems. I included one more before I'm filming stuff. So there's 4 simple systems: the 12-week goal system, the para method, the tag system, and the moving project task system. So as I mentioned before, it is actually 3, because this one was I already talking before, the moving projects and tasks. And so first of all, we have the 12-week goal system, as I mentioned before, which is kind of like the challenge. But I'm going into detail more now, how it actually we achieve these goals. So first of all, we have the 12-week goal system, where we start with one specific goal. We have our goal. Let's say we want to make a specific amount of income. Let's say you want to make 5,000 with your own business in 3 months. Then we have this one specific goal. And then we're going to break this down into 3 smaller monthly goals. And these smaller monthly goals result into weekly projects. Let's say for month 1, you have week 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is towards getting into month 1, like the goal of month 1. And then in this week, we have day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And these things needs to result to the specific 1 week. And then when we have all 4 projects for the first month, we kind of have the first goal. And then we have the second monthly goal and the third. That's the 12 goal system, and also the 90-day challenge. And to make this easier and more accessible and more productive, we need to organize our tasks and responsibilities, and that's the best way possible with a para method from Tiago Forte. So he talks about the projects, areas, resources, and archive. And projects is, for example, writing a blog, editing a video, something which has an end in mind. Then we have the areas, which is a never-ending completing task or like project. It's like health, finances, business, career, etc. This have no ending and is also actionable. So projects and areas are both actionable. Resources, in the other case, is more a non-actionable task. This could be like productivity tips, book lists, information we can gather, and just like maybe read to understand certain things. Then there's also archives. This is like mostly finished projects. So we move the projects into the archives, or also like old notes, but we don't really need currently, to kind of like don't get this mental clutter with too much stuff at once. And also projects And also we don't really delete things. So for example, sometimes there are things like, let's say 2 years ago, and we didn't delete it. So we're like, hey, I had this project 2 years ago with this one client. Let's find it again with like, let's say 2023, quarter or challenge 2, kind of like that. And this really helps a lot of simplification. And also what I do as well is to have a specific tag system. This can be implemented in Notion, in Cortex, or in also Milanote as a whiteboard, or as your own desktop, iCloud, whatsoever. It specifically works well on MacBooks or iPhone and iCloud systems. So we have 3 specific categories, and I color them in 3 different ways. First of all, it's the bigger category, which is always the color red, which you might know more if you're more following me in my older YouTube videos, or especially in the newsletter. I'm talking quite often about that. And then we have the grandparent tag. I call it grandparent tag, which is also the category, and which is always red. So we know that's the big picture. Then we also have the keywords, or like the smaller part, the parent tag, which is in orange. So we have red. Then under red, we have orange. It's a sub category or a sub task or whatsoever. And then we also at the end has the purpose. It's a child tag. So we have grandparents, parent tag, and child tag. And then with the child tag, it's a specific purpose. Let's say it's like the Saturday newsletters I'm publishing, the challenge newsletters I'm publishing, etc. So there's a lot of a specific hierarchy we want to follow. And that's also how I'm systemizing my folders, my Notion files, my Cortex files, and also everything I have actually. With like this para method and the coloring tag system or keyword system. And yeah, then the moving project and task system, as I explained before. And yeah, I know this is a lot of information. I hope I was kind of like explaining this in a good way, in a good flow of explanation. Sometimes a bit hard to follow maybe. I hope not, because it's a lot of information in one video. Yeah, I also have this video actually in a written version as a newsletter, which you can also see in the blog. Yeah, if you're interested, join a challenge. Either one of them, join a newsletter, read one of the blog posts, or yeah, maybe at the end, getting one of the cohorts and joining them. I think I can get into more detail and also more in the FAQ system, because sometimes I think it's quite difficult to have one video in like, let's say half an hour, and then there's so much information and you can't really ask questions in between. Yeah, so you might want to consider getting into one of the challenges where it's a bit simpler explained instead of my way of talking in English. So I hope this video was valuable for you. And yeah, see you guys in my next video. If there's any mistakes or any not understandable thing with my communication, vocabulary in English, sorry for that. And please leave a comment. Thanks, and see you guys in my next video.